Ready?
Welcome to Six Figure Souls Doing Good and Making Money, the weekly podcast where I highlight entrepreneurs who have left the grind and designed businesses in alignment with who they are. This is a very special season 9 where I'm interviewing my co-authors of our third collaborative book in the Ultimate Guide series called Leaving Your Legacy. I'm your host, Camille Miller, an internationally known business strategist, life accelerator, and founder of the Soul Professional Society, which is a global business incubator for logically brained and soul-led entrepreneurs in service to others. Today, I have in my studio Lara Waldman. She is the Wealth Accelerator. Lara has been in three of our collaborative book series. So I welcome you to our podcast, Lara. Thank you.
So wonderful to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I will say that your chapter title in this third book is called Live Your Legacy. Before we get started, tell us a little bit about who you are, and then we'll talk about your chapter and the books and everything else.
Yes, so I'm Lara Waldman. I am the podcast host and author of another book, Money Manifestation Mastery. I've been a healer, spiritual coach, and channel for over 2 decades, and I specialize in working with driven, heart-centered, soulful entrepreneurs and business owners who are here to play a much bigger game. I help them transform their blocks to owning their value, their invisible blocks to welcoming in more money in order to manifest high cash months in alignment with their heart, body, and soul, in alignment with their purpose.
I love that. I love that. Um, you have been in all three of our books, so I kind of want to start there. What made you decide to be in this third book, Leaving Your Legacy? But I also want you just to touch on all of the experiences, like through book one through book two, book three, because I noticed that one, I became a much better writer. Right.
Mm.
I just opened up with dialogue this time and it was so easier where in the beginning I was just like, oh my God, I don't know if I even want to put my story out there. But by the third book, I'm like, I got this. I'm like, I'm just telling my truth. So it was easy. What were your feelings from like the third to the last?
That's
And
yes.
yeah, just in the whole right. I know I've asked you a couple of questions in there. Let's start with that.
Well, first of all, what made me want to do it was you and my soul's guidance, because I'm always following the guidance of my soul when it comes to anything I do, but particular collaborations or projects. I found writing, well, each chapter for me, I find it really powerful, healing, and transformational journey. I
Mm,
go through quite a big kind of almost like an upgrade when I'm writing. I make a
okay.
lot of video. So my kind of comfort zone is speaking on my podcast, making videos. Writing, I have historically found a little bit harder, although that's changing over time and practice. And it was very vulnerable for me. I really tuned in and asked, what do I need to write about? And each thing I found really exposing on another level, and really powerful. And also, a really, it just feels so amazing to take something maybe I've learned through, overcoming something challenging or difficult, or being able to share my words of wisdom, then putting them on paper is just really, really powerful. Something really powerful happens to me personally when I do that. And then also this incredible feeling, which is like sharing my lived experiences and sharing really powerful, life-changing tools with others. Just almost, I don't know, it's just such a powerful experience, I find.
I love that. I love that. So was the third one easier than the first one?
Actually, no, it was
No.
harder. Yeah.
Oh, why?
Yeah. Because I think I exposed myself on another level that was really challenging for me. But I didn't really know that until I went down to write it. The first chapter I wrote was, money on purpose. And I was really talking about the sudden death of one of my best friends and that experience. And that was really hard and really moving. But I'd moved through quite a lot of the deep stuff. The third one, I tune in. I asked my guidance, I asked my soul what I'm supposed to write about, and it was live your legacy and really talking about being, who you are and who you're here to be. And for me, this was about talking about the story about moving beyond my family And actually, it was very painful for me because I was also exposing things publicly I hadn't exposed before.
Mhm.
Some of the things I've had to overcome, and a lot of the kickback and judgments and criticism I've had from my family and some well-meaning friends, and having to choose myself, my soul, my path, because I know who I am and what I'm here to do. And that's actually been having to grow beyond my family and this sort of deep stress that that's put me under. And it took me a long, long time to, I guess, have the courage to be that bold and brave. Like I was really stuck in a spin for a long time of this inner conflict between who I am, what I'm here to do, and then that longing for belonging, like wanting to fit
Yeah.
in, wanting to be a part of a community, and deeply loving family members, but also being in this real inner conflict. And and my journey through that, and it was really hard for me to expose some of those things. I didn't name anyone, I didn't like throw anyone under the bus, but it was for me a really big deal. Although actually when you read it, I'm not saying anything too controversial, but that's why I was surprised. Though I thought, third time this is going to be easy. Actually, I think it was because it's also represented a moment in where I am, and my
Yes.
next level. And this was a really big one for me personally, about really like putting my stake in the ground and choosing to move forward, because there was still kind of a block in myself around that.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's why it was more challenging for me.
So interesting. I feel with all of them, I told my story, like where I was, but I felt such growth when I wrote this one. Also, knowing that it's the final book, I
Yeah.
think just mentally, I was like, okay, this is where we cap. And it's really interesting because my first thought was, how can I write my final book when I'm still going?
Yeah.
But I guess it's more about where I am now, but I feel like I've gotten to the place of um, building and becoming, right? I became who I am, but now I feel so grounded in who I am that my legacy moves from this moment on. Like
Yeah.
I was trying to figure it out before, but now I'm so certain. And I do believe that my business school and everything came out of writing this chapter. I don't
Wow.
know if it all would have come together if I didn't write this chapter, but I always say like that's the way it's supposed to work in the world, right? That's the guidance. Like I put more into the guidance now and just trust the process than I've ever done ever in my life. And it keeps getting better.
Wow, that's so cool. And I really relate. Time
But
to build.
sorry.
Time to build from here.
Yeah, but for all of us, right? Even though I know the idea of writing about our legacies when we're still so young
Mhm.
is kind of in a way, people were like, what do you mean? That's so hard. I think a lot of the co-authors had trouble with the idea until they started to write. And really, it's about the imprint that you're leaving on the world, right? And
Yeah,
you can change that and the lives that you touch along the way.
absolutely.
Um, I would love to dive in a little bit, if it's okay with you, about your work, because I find it so interesting. And how you've become this wealth accelerator, this wealth activator, what you do in the world, I feel is so unique that I'd love to just tell our listeners about it a little bit more. Because I feel like you go way beyond just the subconscious. There's a lot of mindset coaches out there, a lot of mindset coaches, and there's probably a lot of money coaches out there. But I feel like you have this unique ability to pull it all together and give people the self-confidence, which I think is a big part of wealth, to grow and work on themselves and really build this life that they dream of. So it's not just wanting and wishing, but manifesting and really building it, because manifesting is so much more than wanting and wishing. And I hear
Yeah.
that all the time. I want to want. So I would love to just talk a little bit about what your process is and how it's different, if you can compare a little bit to more than mindset, more than wealth, and how you dovetail it so beautifully in your programs.
Well, thank you so much. First of all, it's been a long, deep, rich body of work. I've been in this game kind of on different levels, personally for 25 years, professionally for over 20 years. So it's been like a
Yeah.
learning as I go, a growing
Yeah.
as I
Yeah.
and just because I've been so stubborn and unwilling to quit, I've just like kept going and going and going, and then fine-tuning and refining through, a lot of failure, a lot of trial and error, a lot of mistakes, a lot of lived experience. And my passion is, the things that have taken me frigging forever to figure out, I want to help fast track because there's things that took me a long time that didn't actually have to take as long. And really understanding kind of the depth of, manifestation and what wealth is. Um, and I'm such a deep diver, and I'm like a little sort of energy detective. And when there's something I kind of get, but I really want to understand, I just go in. And this subject just is the most entertaining because it's so, so freaking interesting. And when it comes to, what I do is what I call soul aligned, heart aligned, body aligned wealth creation, manifesting what you want in alignment with your heart, body, and soul. This is a very rich, deep body of work. And what I know now is that what you want, what it is you truly desire, actually lives inside of you like a
Mhm.
seed of consciousness. So there's our ego wants and desires. So something your personality self wants, your ego wants. You look outside of you, think, I want that. And that's fine. You can manifest, you can create from any place that you want. But what I learned is it's not necessarily going to bring you true fulfillment. And I've coached so many people who built like massive businesses, had all the money, all the success, and then actually become more depressed than ever
Yeah.
before. And I find that really, really interesting. So it's like, well, what good is all that wealth and money and success and business if you're miserable or really depressed? You build something thinking it's what you want, and only to find out it's not what you want. And also, people spend all this time and energy building a life that actually isn't really truly what they want. That could be a marriage, that could be their business, that could be their financial reality. And then suddenly you wake up, usually midlife, going, what the heck? Is this it? And that can be like a real dark night of the soul, a
Mhm.
real, real crisis. So that's one bit. I'm like, how about we build and create in alignment with what you truly desire? And also, this came from my fuel came from the fact that I grew up around wealth. I grew up wealthy. I grew up around a lot of money. Didn't know it at the time because there was
Yeah.
still so much lack and scarcity. And then just rejected the whole kind of physical world, to be honest. I was like, none of this matters. It's all about spirituality. And then became super, super broke myself, very spiritually rich, gifted healer, getting great results for my clients. But I had totally rejected money without even realizing. And my soul's guidance said it was time for what my inner guidance calls integrated wealth, where we have spiritual wealth and we have physical wealth, where we're creating wealth, not just financial wealth, but wealth in every area of our life. So I call this living abundance. My programs are living abundance, mastermind, living abundance leaders. And what does that actually mean? Because when I was first in the spiritual scene, there's words like abundance and manifesting and sovereignty and freedom and all these words that are sound great, and you can even tap into through meditation, through positive visualization. But what I found where a lot of people got really stuck, including myself, was the
Mhm.
actual integration of that through the physical to physical reality. So myself, I could tap into it. I could access very high states of consciousness through meditation, through healing, but on the physical ground, I was broke. My relationship was in a mess. Like there was a huge sense of loneliness and separation from the world. I didn't feel safe. There was a huge divide between my physical lived human experience and then my very rich spiritual experience. And that's when I really started kind of waking up this wealth work, which was like, how do we do integrated wealth? Which means the soul is fully manifest through the body, right?
Wow.
And we are fully so living your legacy. It's not just an idea or a spiritual teaching that some guru gets to preach, from the mountaintop, but not actually living what they're preaching, right? This
Mhm.
kind of, which I think becomes super dark when human beings are like kind of presenting one aspect of themselves, but like the root systems are really rotten. And so I've been been obsessed about this, like integrated wealth, which is also making sure that as leaders, as business owners and entrepreneurs, we're living with integrity and in alignment with our values. And so what we're doing, what we're building, what we're creating is like a life-giving energy. Now, human beings, we all have shadow, we all have wounds, we all have blind spots. And this work is also very much around how to be better leaders, how to be better humans, and not from a sort of showcasing point of view, like what it looks like on the surface, but actually, what does it mean to actually embody it and actually live that? So it's this money work and wealth work is so much deeper and richer than money alone. Money's the symptom, but it's really about making sure we're like embodying our work, living our work, being the leaders that we want to see in the world, not just kind of presenting an idea of who we want other people to think we are.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's this innate guilt around, if I'm spiritual, I shouldn't be making money around my gifts? I come across that a lot. Like there's this disconnect with the being authentic and that spiritual self and wealth. Like it's two different people. Like that's not me. I have to be poor and spiritual or wealthy and inauthentic, right?
Yeah.
But you can't be both. And I'm hoping that's changing, but
yeah, I mean, this is like the number one thing I was up against in my own money blocks and mindset issues that I didn't even know was running me, that I thought rich people were bad. If you're spiritual, you shouldn't want money, have money, charge anything. And that's the biggest load of BS ever.
Yeah.
It took me quite a few years, honestly, to detangle that point of view and belief. And it's fine, you can believe that, but it's like what my guidance showed me and what my wealthy wisdom within showed me over time was basically to ask yourself a question. Where do you make the greatest impact? Where can you help the most people? With money or without money? Right?
Right.
Do you have the capacity, the ability, the tools, the resources, the support to really make that difference when you're broke, when you have no money? I mean, the answer for me is always no.
Yeah.
So this is about working with money and working with wealth consciously and mindfully as a resource of support and fuel for yourself as a business owner, for your business, but also for impact, because you need money flowing through a business to make a difference. But you can do it. Again, learned all of this the hard way. Had a lot of objections when my soul self was telling me all this. I was like, objection. So honestly, I was fighting this information for many years. It took me a while to get on board and understand that there was a way of working with wealth and money that was absolutely stunningly beautiful. And first I had to clear all my judgments about wealth and rich people and money, because it's not money that's good or bad, right? And in fact, I don't even really buy into this idea of good and bad anyway. I believe we all have light, we all have shadow. We have to accept that fact. And I think a lot of spiritual people like to project out that I'm holy and pure, that everyone else is bad. And the one thing my dad taught me, if you're pointing the finger, you always have three fingers pointing back at you. So it's like whatever you're seeing outside in the world, we all have within us. So it's like wealth work is really about acknowledging that you are all of life. Right? And when we disassociate or separate from ourselves or each other, we actually weaken our power. So when it comes to money and money manifestation, we're actually talking about power and we're actually talking about energy. And so if there's a money problem, there's a power problem. And it's how do we work with money and power really consciously and mindfully? And this was my absolute, like, would not kind of ever go out of alignment with my values and integrity. So I was like, if I'm going to do money work, when my soul was showing me what I was here to do, there is like, this has to be in alignment with my soul and heart. Like, I will not sell myself out. Like, this was like, has to be totally authentic and aligned. Not to say I was perfect with that, but that was like my absolute, like, no way. And so then I learned how to do it, but there was a way to do it. In money and power, really consciously, really mindfully. But it means we have to own our own, we have to come back to our own power and our own sovereignty, but also really understand how much we project and how much separation we create within ourselves. And actually in the spiritual community, they're some of the most judgmental people I've ever met. And I was one of them as well. It was like I call it spiritual superiority and spiritual ego. It's like the shadow is everywhere. The
Yeah.
shadow is, you cannot escape yourself. So this is a big part of my work, is like radical self-responsibility. And so if we're going to work with money, we're going to work with power, we need to make sure we're in alignment and integrity with ourselves. And there's so much, because there's so much historical hurt and harm when it comes to money, because money was, this whole thing was built and created from really a misuse of power.
Yes.
My visionary leader self, who I've seen this for 20 years, is this: we're here to actually transform the financial system, transform how we do business. We're here to rewrite the old. We're here to heal the system by starting with ourselves. And, we've got some cleaning up to do. We've got some work to do. But this is it. It's like, let's take all that spiritual wisdom, healing, and like tools and techniques, like incredible gifts, and pump it into the world.
Yeah.
Right. And if we cut off from money, we cut off from power, we cut off from impact. And so trust me, like I said, I was kicking and screaming with this information. And I finally was like, okay, get it. I surrender. Let's go.
I love that. I love that. I love the work you do. But it when you were talking, it also reminded me in the beginning when I started to create my company, which is almost 10 years now. As I started to get better at my craft, I started to increase my pricing, right? And I remember I had a member that was just infuriated that I would charge spiritual people to learn business. Like, and it kept me small for a long time, years. It kept me small because I was like, oh, well, I must be bad if I'm doing that, but I am gifted, but I tackled with, in the corporate world, I get paid a lot of money though. Right. Right. So that's like, that didn't make sense to me, but I also didn't want to offend anybody. And there was that place of, okay, if I'm going to be authentic, if I'm going to be true to myself, then I have to step up. I have to play a bigger game. And these people just aren't part of the journey. And that's okay. That's okay, because there's a lot of people doing incredible work, like the people you work with and yourself, that are creating wealth in a spiritual way. And that's how we impact the world, which I think is a great way to circle back to leaving your legacy, right? Because I believe that the impact that you're leaving is how many people, but when we create wealth, we can impact so many more. We can help so many more. And that's all a part of it. And it's important. And I find, especially for women, because they weren't in control of money for so long. But now women are very in control of some major money. So it will change the world, I think, in a much better way.
Yes,
But
exactly.
yeah.
I've been through the same around pricing and positioning. I mean, I used to like give my services away. I was trying to save and rescue the world. And, that was okay to a degree, but it was like throwing money down the drain, because I couldn't, it was like leaking my energy everywhere. Honestly, I've learned, it took me a long time to really get this. The way I got it was I tuned in, I asked my soul, how much should I charge for this? And I was so confronted by what I was being guided to charge. And it was all about holding not only my value, but the value of the work. And when I was trying to give it away to save and rescue everyone, I was actually weakening and not holding the value, not only of the work, but of myself. And that actually weakened and leaked my power to actually create an impact. And so it's a step-by-step process. You have to like get yourself ready to charge more. There's a process, there's a process behind that. But what was so interesting is, as I raised my prices in alignment with my value, as I was being guided, the power of my work increased, and then my impact increased, and the results.
Absolutely.
Actually, everything felt easier.
Yes.
Harder work what I was doing before, and then my work started becoming easier and easier. It was easier, and I thought that was like the craziest thing. And now I just understand, when you're in alignment with yourself and you're in alignment with your pricing, your work feels like easier.
Yes.
Like easier. Yeah, it's
I
crazy.
go through that now. Yeah. Once I got to a space, and I love when people are like, "Oh my God, that's all you're charging," and I'm like, "Honey, that is like 3 times what I used to charge." But that's how you know when it's so easy when they make the decision. But I also feel like when people are paying what you're worth, they're more apt to do really good work in the world, right? That's what I find. When they're ready to step into it and they're not coming from a place of scarcity and I can't afford it, I can't afford it, I can't afford it, or someday I'll do this, someday I'll do this. I'm like, okay, that's
Yeah.
great
So
if you do, but not my people. Yeah. Which I never try to talk anyone into it, right? Because unless they're ready, it's never going to happen. And I feel like if I try to convert someone to go into a program or do something or spend the money, they're going in with resentment and it's not going to work.
yeah.
But those that are ready to do the work, pay for the work, and they have incredible results, incredible because they're ready. And then we're surrounding ourselves with more people like we are,
Yeah.
right? And it kind of builds. Beautiful. I love the work you do in the world. And I'm so glad that you are a part of all three books and in my circle of friends. And I just love you. I just
And
do.
it's the connections you make that are the most valuable things, isn't it? It's like
It
I was
is.
going to do these books with you and like we've become really good friends
We
and it's
have.
like, oh my God, it's just amazing. So thank you so much.
You are so
Absolutely.
welcome. How can people get in touch with you to learn more about you and your work? What's the best way?
Well, you can check out my podcast, Money Manifestation Mastery, if you want to. There's a wealth of resources there. Come to my website, larawaldman.com. Again, we have some more free resources, my activation or my online events. And you can come in to some of my other offerings from that place. I'm all over social media. I've got tons of content on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. You can find me. I'm out there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being a part of this show and to be another co-author with me.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been absolutely beautiful and life-changing.
Life-changing. Woo-hoo. All right. Thank you, all of my listeners who joined me today. If you loved this interview, please share it with your friends and pick up our book. It came out in September of 2024. Lara's been in all three, so you can go buy the whole series of the Ultimate Guide. It's called the Ultimate Guide series. You can buy all three, but our third book came out September 2024. You can also join us and others at checking out Soul SOUL professional.com. A soul professional lives in a higher vibration, has an alternative approach to business, and is here to help repair the world. That sounds like you. You have found a bunch of friends, and come learn more about us at soulprofessional.com. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week.